like it was today, 72. Yep. Perfect one. The Bears game was great too because we were under the over, so we didn't get it.
No, don't go slow.
Calling our CRA meeting to order at 2:32 p.m. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you all for coming and providing your input in this meeting. And at this time, we'll turn it over to our CRA director, Mr. Janke.
Good afternoon. I guess I'll just go ahead and talk about item number 4, the CRA budget.
Any public commentary? Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Rich Walker. I noticed in the, this is a commission meeting to discuss, and then you're going to have a workshop, discuss what you're going to discuss again here and pass. I don't understand the order here. You should have a workshop before you discuss the budget, and then have the meeting to discuss with the commissioners and approve. I didn't think that's the way it was done, but that's the way you're going to do it. You're going to have a workshop after this on the same subject. My question here is, will the budget advisory board, not advisory board of recommendation, the original budget or tentative budget, be published in the newspaper as per like all other municipalities do of budgets? I noticed that the CRA budget, which is $68 million for Panama City Beach, was published in the newspaper. Normally, the budgets are put in the newspaper so that the people can see it, read it, understand it, come to the workshops, discuss it, come to the meeting and discuss it, and then be approved. What I'm saying here is, will we get to discuss this as citizens as it comes down to each level of the budget? You're going to discuss it. Will we be allowed to have comments on each one of the items as you go down? And then again, we're going to do it in the workshop. So my question here is, are we going to allow citizens to discuss it here? And a second question is it going to be published in the newspaper for the general public? And that is my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public commentary? This time, approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Ward. City Manager, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Discussion of the budget.
Good afternoon. We prepared a budget for the upcoming fiscal year for the Lynn Haven CRA with the help of the CRA Advisory Board. The proposed revenues for the upcoming fiscal year amount to $685,652. Proposed expenditures are $680,008, and we're proposing a transfer to reserve in the amount of $5,643. Again, this budget was prepared with the input of the CRA Advisory Board. We had 2 public meetings in that regard, and this information was incorporated into the budget that is attached to this agenda item. At this point, we would ask the board for consideration and approval of this proposed budget.
All right,
Can.
You want me to answer the
Yes.
earlier question? Yeah, as far as, right now, obviously, we're in the CRA meeting. The workshop, my understanding to follow this is for the city budget, which will include a component of the CRA, but it's the full city budget workshop. And then we're going to have our first budget hearing this evening at 5:30. you have to have that first budget hearing occur first before you advertise your budget ad and your notice of millage. And you actually have 15 days from the date of that first hearing in which to advertise it. And then your hearing needs to take place within a 2 to 5 day window after it appears in the News Herald. So I'm sure Kiki will have the ad ready to go after tonight's. Obviously, it's a preliminary meeting tonight at 5:30, and so we need to know what to advertise. And so at that point, the city will advertise the budget ad, which has the budget summary with all the numbers in the News Herald, along with the notice of hearing for the millage. And so that'll go in the paper next week, presumably. So the answer is yes, it will all go in the News Herald like it does every year.
Are there any questions for Mr. Jenke regarding the revenues of the CRA budget?
Yes. I just wanted to ask you about the 32,000 for the demolition. What are we demolishing? What is that for?
So you see the $32,000 on the revenue side of the CRA. So this is actually the anticipated return of the money that we already spent on demolishing 3 residential homes that were destroyed during Hurricane Michael. If you recall, this was this one residence here on Michigan Avenue. The second one is or was on East 5th Street, and the third one was on Carolina Avenue.
And where is that money coming from?
From the tax collector. So the city commission approved in a different way how to collect expenditures like this, instead of just placing a lien on the property and waiting until it eventually transfers in several years, to create or to place a special assessment on the property. And that special assessment will be satisfied at the next time whenever the taxes are due. So I guess by the end of this calendar year, we should be seeing the revenue coming in from the tax collector.
Right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
if they pay their taxes, and that'll be part of tonight's meeting will be to do that special assessment for those 4 properties, 3 of which were CRA funded. The demos. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions regarding the CRA revenues? Any questions regarding the expenditures? I'm still talking to the commission right now. Okay. Any questions regarding the expenditures for the CRA?
I do have a question, and I know you've tried to answer it, and I'm in the middle of a conversation with Jennifer regarding that workman's comp that's doubled. It's gone from 379 to 716.
Our finance director, Ms. Kiki Roman, will answer this question.
Ta-da.
Good evening. We had discussed in our earlier meetings, and I believe that you did get an email on this, Tinder, that the composite rate is applicable this year. The workers' comp company is charging us one rate for all employees. It's called a composite rate. In the past, workers' comp had different risk codes. Police department would have a different risk code than an office worker. Now the workers' comp company says, no, we're going to spread it all over through all workers, and you're going to pay the same amount for me as you would for someone who carries a gun.
Wow. Okay, and that's being mandated by the state?
The fact that we have to have workers' comp insurance is mandated by the state. Yes, ma'am.
But everybody's
The
going to pay the
composite
same?
rate, that's part of the insurance company that we're using now. That's their method.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions from the commission? All right, any questions from the public?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. My first question would be, does the commission have the same budget that I'm using? That would be my question too. Does the commission
We have the same budget that's published online,
have the
yes.
same budget that I'm using?
As far as the CRA budget, yes.
I'm talking about the CRA here. I just need to find that out. And the second part of that is, I had asked Vicky for a budget at a certain time.
Well, are you, right now, we're asking specific questions about line
I
items of
do,
the
I
budgets.
certainly do, yes.
Yes.
This is page 65 of the 80 pages. It's entitled CRA Expenditures. This is at the very top, the Personnel Services. If you go to the last line, 528000, it's called PTO Buyback and Payout, $7,000. Can you tell me what that is?
As we have discussed before, PTO buyout is for employees who accrue more than 300 hours. Once they hit the 300-hour mark, they start to lose it. We have a cap. They cannot accrue more than 300 hours. Twice a year, they're allowed to pay out, buy back, sort of use those interchangeably, between 40 and 80 hours per buyout. That can happen once every 6 months. We've calculated that it's possible that Ben may opt for that rather than taking vacation.
Again, the same page, page 65 of 80, down under operating expenditures. On the left-hand side, it's going to say 546099. It's called demolition in the amount of $40,000. I'm hoping I have the correct line here. It was hard to read. Or is that $40,000 for the item above it?
Mr. Janke?
Can you read that number? I think he's looking for it too. Which number are you referring to? Which number are you referring to?
546099.
Under proposed FY '23, $40,000 in that column.
That was for the one.
I think that
Actually,
was,
My column has 16350.
I think she's looking
The
at.
40,000 is the R&M improvement support Florida Avenue IMP. Demolition is 16,350 for 2022, and for 2023 budget, the demolition is at zero.
I think you're off by a line.
Thank you.
Yeah, demolition is zero.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
So that's zero. So
I was off.
No,
Thank
I
you.
was too, because I was.
Also, that same page, if you look on the left hand, it's going to have the account number of, I'm hoping I have the right line again, 561000, land, vacant, parenthesis, vacant land on Florida Avenue, end of parenthesis, for $100,000 in the FY '23 column.
yes, there's a vacant parcel that is on Florida Avenue. You'll see that on the quarter adjacent to the property tax office that's for sale.
Right.
And so that's something we're considering purchasing if it's within our budget as we're looking at expanding Florida Avenue.
And I'm sorry if you've already said this, but can you tell me what it's going to be used for?
Could be used for parking.
Parking.
For Florida Avenue, possibly, yes. But right now, we don't have any land on Florida Avenue, so we need to acquire
Possibly.
more land.
Possibly parking. Now, the next page, which would be page 66 of the 80-page budget, on the left-hand side under account, it says 582002. It's capitalized, and it says aid to police department. And again, I hope I have the correct figure. It's $10,000. Can you tell me what that is?
Last year, we provided aid to the police department for, I would basically say, traffic scanners that they put in the CRA area. And so it's possible that the police department may do something to enhance, crime and safety from crime in the CRA. So we're making that provision in the budget this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional questions?
I have in front of me the CRA projects 2022 and 23 and advisory board recommendations and original budget, which I assume was transposed over to what you were just reading. And I have some questions on it here. I don't have too much to worry about line number one, storefront assistance program, but $55,000 is way, way far above what the CRA normally gets in front of for CRA storefront. Okay? Install historic markers on rails to trails trail site, $15,000. Far as I can see from the deed and everything else, Florida Trail the trail site does not appear within the district of the CRA. It is not in there at all. So I was wondering why that one is there dealing with the Rails to Trail site in the town center for the Rails to Trails signs. The Rails to Trails just received a tremendous amount of money for their portion. I'm saying Rails to Trails is not going to be the full portion of 231, but they received a heck of a lot of money. So I don't understand why they need help from CRA, and even the fact that the CRA does not have the Rails to Trails within its jurisdiction. Number
Mr.
two,
Okay.
Florida Avenue improvements. Florida Avenue just had a meeting with everybody in this town, and they made one simple statement that this was for Florida Avenue. But they also stated, what do you want to see for your city? I see a little confusion here on the city versus the CRA area for Florida Avenue. So right here, Florida Avenue improvements, they're going to get $4.1 million. Why did they need $40,000 from Florida Avenue support when we just finished the workshop on that? That's number two. Residential incentive program, housing, fine, no problem. Residential paint program, no problem. Equipment for the pocket park, 17th Street, Rails to Trails. Again, Rails to Trails does not fall within the category of CRA, especially on 17th Street. So I wonder how we get jurisdiction on that. Update tables, trash cans, sliding for Porter Park, $20,000. Porter Park falls under the park system. It means that we're not having enough money given to the support of the park? Okay, that's acceptable. Sidewalk 17th Street, acceptable and approved by the advisory board. Rails to trails, add items, benches, shelter, lights, $50,000. Again, rails to trails. And down the bottom of it here, transportation tag reader annual lease, $10,000, does not fall within the CRA responsibility. I believe that the things that I mentioned that do not fall within the CRA responsibility are salient points, similar to what you're saying here on the last one, that the transportation one doesn't fall within it. I think, and this budget was not approved by the advisory board. The advisory board doesn't approve the budgets. So what you have to look at is, are these things within the CRA jurisdiction? For example, the purchase of this property, you're correct. CRA is allowed to buy property and own it, and turn it into parking. That is part of the statutes. That's correct. However, you didn't do it when you bought the property over here. You turned it into office space for the cities, and then your attorneys said, well, we're going to give it to the city in 30 years anyway, so we'll give it to them now. That was against the rules. That was done. So what I'm saying here is what should be in your jurisdiction. If it is, that's fine. But if it isn't, it shouldn't appear in the budget.
Okay, so there were several questions, and I'm going to try to answer all of them. So if I miss any question, please let me know. And then, first of all, the CRA Advisory Board did not approve this list. They made a motion, approved a motion to make a recommendation to the CRA board. And that's why this list and the meeting minutes are attached to this agenda packet. One of the items Mr. Walker was talking about was the install of historic markers. And the question he had was whether or not this, on the Rails to Trails side. And the question he had was if Rails to Trails is located within the CRA, because he's right, the CRA is not allowed to spend any CRA dollars outside the CRA. The northern portion of the Rails to Trails project is clearly located within the Lynn Haven CRA. So West 17th Street is the cutoff, and everything north of that would be of that Rails to Trails corridor would be located within the CRA, and therefore this expense would be justified or would be allowable should the CRA board decide to approve this expenditure. Next item on the list, support of Florida Avenue improvements, $40,000. Yes, we did receive some $4.3 million in grant funding from the state to some improvements. However, as we just learned from the DOT grant that we received for Rails for Trails, not every expense is going to be covered by this grant. There are going to be some items that the issuing agency will not pay for. And that's the reason why I recommended to the advisory board to add $40,000 to the CRA's budget so that we can cover those expenses that will not be covered by the grant. So we're still in the early stages on this. We don't even have any construction plans right now, so I cannot give a specific response what kind of expenditures would fall under that category, but I know that we will find out within the next 6 to 8 months what kind of expenditures are not included. Next item, or next note that I wrote down, the equipment for the Pocket Park on 17th Street, right next to the Rails for Trails project, $40,000. If you recall, this is an ongoing project. We already started clearing the property, the site. We brought in some fill dirt. We kind of prepped everything. This line item here is phase 2 of this project, where we're actually going to be buying some equipment, some benches, maybe a swing that we can install at that Pocket Park. And again, this Pocket Park is also located within the CRA. Let's see. Next item I had noted on my list is Rails or Trails, additional items, benches, shelter, and lights. As I mentioned before, those items are not reimbursable items by DOT under the Rails for Trails grant. So we have to find some alternative funding sources to pay for this. We have looked into the multimodal mobility fee as one option, as one source of paying for these items. Another option would be that the CRA would pay for those items, those benches and shelters that are located within the CRA on that trail. That's all I got on my list. Is there any question that I did not answer, Mr. Wall?
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for this budget?
Can I ask a question real quick? So if we buy a vacant lot in the CRA, does it have to come out of the CRA money, or could we buy it out of the general fund if we wanted to?
It doesn't have to come out of the CRA.
Okay. And the other question I have, I think we talked about this when we went over the budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the money we spend in the CRA, we have to spend all that money by the end of the year, right?
Yes, it's not somewhere where you go and have a
build up.
savings account. Yes, you're exactly right.
That's it.
All right. Is there a motion for this budget?
Move to,
Second.
All right.
you wanted to read the resolution by title. And just for clarification, there's a reference to chapter 189, 418 in that first sentence. That's actually been updated to 189.016. So it's, the statute didn't change, it's changed the numbers a year ago. So just,
Can you
we could tell.
say that one again?
So where it says 189.418 in the first whereas clause, that's actually 189.016. It's the correct reference. It was just an updated number a couple years ago by the legislature.
Got it. Resolution number 2022-0903, a resolution adopting a tentative budget for the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency for the fiscal year 2022-2023 and appropriating for the purposes specified redevelopment trust funds in amount specified for disbursement according to the said budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023.
Thank you. There's a motion by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Ward. City Manager, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.